Hello, YouTube world, and welcome to another episode of my Interviewosaurus series. Now, this one is a very special Interviewosaurus because this is going to be the 30th episode and it's the last one for 2020, so hooray! Today I'm joined in the virtual studio, well, it looks like a bar, and I'd like to welcome Lucas to the studio. Welcome, Lucas.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So, for all my audience who have never met you before or haven't stumbled over any of your work before, can you kind of just give us a bit of an idea about where you sit in the world now?
Sure, yeah. Well, right now I'm working on a DreamWorks animated feature film, which I cannot name, as the one of the lead lighters. So basically running a lighting team to light a full CG animated film.
Woohoo! Yeah, excellent. But of course, that's not where you started, was it?
It wasn't. No, I started in a small town called Brisbane, but now I
Ah.
live in Bristol. I think I got lost somewhere along the way and
Ah.
typed in BRIS, and now I'm in Bristol.
Yeah, that's only in another country, it's from where you started.
Yeah.
All the way back in Australia in a little town called Brisbane, which is quite funny because that's where a lot of the guests I sort of get at the moment sort of come from. You started off in Brisbane. Did you study somewhere in Brisbane in special effects, or did you even start in special effects?
No, I didn't, but yeah, I studied at QCA.
Ooh.
I who would have thought? I mean, living in Brisbane in the 90s and 2000s, no one would have thought it was a creative hub. But I think a lot of people came from QCA because that was sort of the only place you could sort of
Study.
study. Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of choices back then to actually get people going. Like TAFE is another one which quite a lot of people sort of kind of filter through the TAFE system as well, or Griffith. Griffith is another one that was really good with
Yeah.
creative stuff. Um, so how did you find your study period? Because it was so long ago. Did you have, there wasn't any like digital tutorials or anything along the internet to pick up. So how did you find the study experience?
Look, I loved it. I actually I came a different path. So I was a director. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I didn't want to do anything with computers, and to be honest, I didn't know anything about visual effects at the time. I remember making short films, and somebody said, "Oh, you should paint that house out." And I said, well, "I don't know how anyone could possibly do that." Um, and so I was studying. Screen production or direction at QCA, and it was our last. I think it was the last year when I started. Was the last year at the Seven Hills campus in Morningside,
Oh,
and then they moved to South Bank, and it sort of changed the energy a bit. But it was nice to have new toys and stuff like that.
yeah.
But yeah, I just approached it. I came in when I was 21, so I'd already studied something else and done other things and made films and I just used the equipment and I was on films all the time. I was watching films, I was reading about films, I was taking pictures, I was doing everything and just absorbing and just having 30 people around who want to make films. It's just the best experience.
Yeah, it's always the energy that sort of comes with other people and working with other people. You get an idea and you start talking about the idea, and that fosters into something else, and then you're on set and it's like, oh my god, we're doing this. It's so awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
So what are you doing this weekend? Oh, making a film. All right, let's do it.
yeah. Yeah, we got 24 hours over the week. Oh, we got 48 hours over the weekend. Let's make a full feature film in that time. Yeah!
Yeah.
Oh, so that got you, once you studied here in Brisbane, did you end up then finding work in Brisbane as well?
Uh, to an extent. I mean, I actually while I was studying, I was kind of up for a directing like SBS came to Queensland. They came to Brisbane to make a series of sort of like fake documentaries. It was drama. But it was as if they'd found this footage, and it was like stories of technological revolution sort of thing. And I went through a lot of interviews, and I got a job directing that, and that didn't work out so well, but it was a fun experience, and I made some good connections. I was a little bit too, young and ambitious, and I didn't want to crumble to
Uh, yeah,
the corporate direction.
yeah, yeah, you got yeah, they got their heel on you saying you need to do this, and you're going, no, no, we're going this way.
Yeah, what about cinema? What about this? So I think, unfortunately, if I had the chance again, I'd do it differently. But that's just that's just the
you
way it is.
you can put a pin in it and call it a learning experience, and you learnt a lot from that experience.
It certainly was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then that rolled on to I got another one. There was another series that ABC did. They launched a network called Fly TV, I think it was, which was sort of like a youth kind of Triple J style. I think JTV is pretty much the child of that. If that's still
Oh,
going. Or Double J, is that a
Double
station
J.
now?
Nah, it's Triple
Yes.
J now.
Right. No, no, no. But I mean, they
The
had like
TV
a
station.
ABC. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they had this offshoot, and they did another series of shorts as well. So I directed one of those, and then yeah, I was kind of talking to people about a lot of stuff, and nothing really happened. And then I had a friend from Sweden who we'd always said that we were going to make a film together. And he called me up and he said, I'd been thinking about going traveling to Europe. And he said, oh, I'm making a film next summer in Sweden. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So, yeah, he basically, I bought a backpack and I went traveling around Europe for 3 months. And then I ended up in Sweden.
Oh,
And yeah, spent the summer shooting a
shooting a
film,
film.
a
Oh,
feature film.
nice.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
cool. A feature film. Yeah, that's one of the great things about, I guess being young. You can just chuck everything on your back and go, all right, let's go for an adventure, see the world, and then just do some work on the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean
Yeah,
that was a learning experience for sure.
yeah,
Having to, people don't really. You can shoot shorts and it's stressful, or you can shoot TV or whatever, and it's super hard. But if you're on set, like we shot for 6 to 8 weeks every day, and we didn't like there were three of us. Like it was me, the director, and the writer, and we were in a room. Like if we went on set, we were in a room going back and forth trying to figure out the next week's plan. We were trying to rewrite scenes. We were doing everything, and we didn't leave each other's sight for 2 months. And it's too much for the human brain. Like you just at the end you're just like, I have to
and
collapse.
uh, yeah. If you get to that point where you go, it's actually sort of all shot. This is great. So that after, like you said, so after being completely exhausted, did you where did you end up then after Sweden?
Then I came home. So I spent a year in Sweden. I was in a so we were shooting this film in Helsingborg, which is a really small town in right next to Denmark. And then I was there for about 6 months, and then I went to Stockholm, did some commercial stuff there, and then I came home. Um, and yeah, I was inspired. I thought, well, if my friends can write and make a film, I'll do it myself. So I lived with my mum in the room, and I mowed lawns over the summer.
Yep. Whatever you
It
can do
was
to get the money rolling through.
yeah. I mean, it was actually kind of nice. I had this routine where I'd wake up early, go mow some lawns, come back and just sit and write. And I wrote for all the rest of the day. Then I'd have dinner with my mum, and then started all the next day. And it was kind of nice. I spent about 6 months doing that, and I wrote a feature film based on Brisbane in World War II. And it never happened, but like it's still sitting there.
Yep.
But
Yep.
it was one of those things. I was super ambitious, and then 6 months later, I thought, well, it might be time to move on, because I'm sure, as some of your other guests have told you, like this Brisbane wasn't really booming at the time, and I couldn't see any jobs for film or anything like that.
Yep.
So I moved to Sydney, and
Yep.
I thought, well, I want to I want to go and at least be where the producers are, at least be where the companies are.
Yeah,
And
where the
that's what I
production
did.
is. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
because that was the thing. Like the same. Soon after the global financial crisis hit Brisbane, Brisbane kind of went into a vacuum, and a lot of real good talent just had to go exploring elsewhere to find work. So it just happened.
Yeah.
So and
Yeah.
Sydney was a hub back then as well. That was where the action was.
Yeah, it was great. It was a big shock actually. Like, I remember I was working at ABC for a little while, and I went across the road to get a coffee, and there was this girl. She must have been a production assistant, but she had a little badge that said Play School, and I was like starstruck from
Oh.
like being next to Play School. It was one of those things. Yeah, I'll never forget. We shot a commercial at the Wiggles studio in Western Sydney,
Ooh.
and I walked past. They were shooting in there. They were shooting one of their DVDs, and I walked past, and there was a pile of sweaty skivvies just chucked in a little basket, and I was like, they never show you that on the video.
Yeah, behind the scenes, the dirty skivvy pile. Oh. Oh, so you were in at ABC there for a little bit, like you're doing short stuff. Did you get any long form stuff happening down in Sydney as well?
Uh, Not until I got into visual effects. So that's sort of how I fell into this. Was I had a friend, Bill, who was working down there, and he was working on a show called Double the Fist, and they were a great bunch of guys. Like they sort of just grabbed cameras and would spend like at this was their second season, and they really like stepped it up. Like they were doing, I don't know, it must have been 900 to 1,000 visual effects shots on this series. It was crazy, and everything had something weird on it, and I had no idea what I was doing. Like Bill just said, if you want, they're looking for people to do rotoscoping, and I didn't know what that was. So they told me, they're like, you put a curve here, and you make an outline, and you animate it through the shot, and yeah, that's what I did. So I only did it for a couple of weeks, but I kind of was like, this is kind of interesting, this whole the software, the potential of everything, what you can do to tell a story, and what you can do to fill in the blanks, things like that. So yeah, that's kind of how I fell into it, and then Bill was making shorts for ABC for I can't remember it was the computer game show, where they review games. Good
Good
game.
game.
You
Yeah,
remember that? Yeah. Is
yeah.
that still on?
Yeah, it's now called Good Game Spawn Point, so it's got an
Okay, there you go.
iteration.
Yeah, I think they were in that transition period then, but they just had like 2 minute shorts. And as I said, I knew nothing about computers, but he would be, working away, and we'd come up with ideas and stuff. But I'd just basically be like, well, maybe we put a light here, or maybe we put a camera here, because that was my experience. I'd come from live action camera and lighting and whatever, and I started to like the process. I started to like the possibility of, it's always going to be this time of day. It's always, I can put the sun wherever I want, things like that. And I started doing tutorials from Linda on Maya, and learning how to move a box around and turn some lights on, things like that, and just sort of got into it that way.
Ah,
I
cool.
was just
That,
playing around.
yep. Yeah, but I mean, that got you the introduction to go, okay, cool, this is what you can do. And so you just kind of put yourself into then, okay, well, here we are. What more can we do? And you start learning that way quicker.
Yeah, exactly. And my basis was always filmmaking. Like, whenever I look at any empty scene, I think, well, what kind of lens am I going to use?
Yep.
That's kind of, who's the subject? What am I actually going to shoot? And I always, even today, like, I'll get a scene that already has all those things, and I'll still think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's part of the storytelling because I see you probably landed fairly soon in layout from the look of your work schedule where you're heading here, because layout does very much lend itself to always kind of getting what's the key point of this shot, and then you do start thinking about where characters are, how they're interacting, and what the best way is from your camera perspective to tell that story. Um, is that sort of where what drove you into that layout thing to start off with?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I don't know how much detail I should go into. It's a long
It's a long story.
long story, but basically, yeah, how I got into it was I I applied at Fuel, and honestly, I to this day I can't remember when I applied at Fuel or why, but I think I saw their website and it looked cool, and they called me maybe 3 months later, and they wanted me to be a runner, and I was like, I was already 30. So to be a runner at 30 is raises some eyebrows. So I went in and yeah, they wanted me for 3 weeks to help them move, and that was sort of enough. Like I got in, I ended up staying for 8 weeks, and basically I was just doing regular dog duties, cleaning the dishwasher and getting people lunches and stuff like that. And it was fine, like it just gave me an insight as to how it works.
Yeah.
It was a Fuel were doing Marvel films already at the time, um, and they now, like, I guess they got bought by Animalogic. Um, that's a whole nother story, but that's sort of like what happened to them. Um, but they, still to this day, I think the work that came out of that building was some of the best I've ever seen in my career. And the artists that were there were super, super talented, super talented. So one day, I was getting lunches, and one of the supervisors was trying to shoot. They were trying to shoot this muesli bar commercial, and they were told to match this one from England. And and you see a commercial, and like the muesli bar opens and there's all this honey dripping off, and it
Oh.
looks so nice, and the nuts crumble and all this sort of stuff. And they quoted to do it full CG, but they thought, well, maybe we can do it for real.
Yeah.
But in visual effects, it's not pretty uncommon for anyone to actually have camera or lighting experience in live action.
Yeah.
So I saw him try and set it up, and I said, well, maybe you should make a little hotbox. Maybe you should put the light here. Maybe you should, do all this sort of stuff. And the supervisor was like, well, when we shoot this, maybe you should come over and help us out. So I ended up setting up the light rig and the camera and filming it. And actually, because I'd made this little white hotbox for the muesli bar, what happened was we broke it. You break it with a little needle so that it doesn't have, like, it's not like a knife cut. It's
Yep.
just broken the nuts, right?
Yep.
And then we had it on this little Lego Technic rig. So it was set up with these little wires, and it was just going, and we shot it on a 5D. And miraculously, because it was so hot in the box, the honey had fused together. So as it came apart, all this honey dripped off, and
Oh.
it did the perfect,
Got
perfect thing.
exactly what you were after.
Exactly. And they showed the director, and he's like, "Yeah, all right, this is
Yeah, it
this is
worked.
fine." Yeah.
Oh.
So from then on, they got me to do on set work, taking measurements, like getting to know the crew, because that's what you need in visual effects. Is people don't really know how set works, or know how who to talk to, and how to get you know ask people questions and things like that.
Yep.
So that's what I was doing. I did that for about a year, and then got talking again, and the head of the company asked me to, because of my experience, he said, well, we want to set up a Previs department and layout that matches real life, so that we can go to set and be like, well, this is what the camera, where the camera should be. This is what kind of dolly we would use, like. So that was my first task, building Chapman dollies in a computer, and doing all these crazy things.
Wow.
And yeah, I basically set up a layout department at Fuel, and was sort of doing that for the time I was there, and sort of got into lighting from that.
This is one thing, like you said right from the start. You attacked putting, going forward for stuff and getting your foot in the door to get exposure. She started off with directing, just doing it with all your heart, and it's amazing what you kind of pick up while you're on set doing stuff. It's the hardest part is actually getting in to start off with, and then just
Yeah,
kind
for
of
sure.
verging your way through to find where you fit. and of course, where you fit at one point, you might not fit somewhere else, and you can use that experience, but go, you know what, we can go over here, and I've learned something new now, which I can apply over here, and oh, it all comes together. Or
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, especially with directing skills, you get stuck in story as well, which is what I love about Previs is you're really close to the story and you're capturing story. So taking that to life set must have been fascinating.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's a skill that I take now. Like, I mean, we on when I was doing previews, we'd have the directors come in, and on a couple of great commercials we did, the director just be sitting next to me and be like, "What if we did this?" Sort of stuff, and that's the heart of it. That's when you're really creating a film in
Yeah.
visual effects. Yeah, we had something similar on Lion King, just to jump ahead, where we had a director of photography, Caleb Deschanel, who's super experienced cinematographer, and he wanted to, he'd been there in previs, and we were doing the lighting on Lion King, and he wanted to come in and do a sort of live session, and it takes a long time to light in visual effects, so it's kind of it's not the most interactive thing to watch.
Yeah.
But we sort of set up a simple scene, and we're like, and he was really good. He was like, "Oh, this is so cool. What if the backlight was coming from here, and this sort of stuff." And it was a proper conversation like you would have on set. So yeah, that was a really nice sort of blend of my two backgrounds, together.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So that gets you introduced to the digital world, in Australia here. How much longer were you in Australia then?
Well, yeah, unfortunately, this was the peak of like sort of the offset of the GFC. So this was when Rhythm and Hue shut down, and Digital Domain shut down a whole bunch of stuff. And yeah, like one day a guy came in to Fuel and he said, "Hey everyone, we've now taken control of the company and you've all lost your jobs." And we said, "Okay," and we went to the pub, and so yeah, we all just sat around somberly. There was still about 50 of us left in the
Wow.
company.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, obviously we saw some signs, but we didn't. You always sort of see that in visual effects.
Yeah, but you don't see such a blatant all of a sudden everything's gone.
No, it
Yeah.
was. I always remember the way he said it. He said he did this big speech. And he's like, "Well, we're the administrators. This we're going to shut down this and this and this, so you can all go home." And he was sort of as if it was our reward.
Oh.
So anyway,
Yep.
so yeah, I was sort of had a month in Sydney where I did some work on a game, and I was just sort of talking to people about what else I could do. I wasn't super worried because I knew I could find work. I just didn't know where it would be right now because everything was sort of shutting down. Um, so this company Luma, they announced that they were moving to Australia, and I thought, cool, they're obviously coming to Sydney, right? They're coming to
Good.
the visual effects capital of Australia.
Yeah.
And then, I got through the first round. They're like, "Oh, would you be okay to move to Melbourne?" I was like, "I don't know. I've been living here for a while. I'd rather stay here." And I just said yes. Sure I will. And as you do,
Yep. Yep.
you're going to pay me? Yeah, I'll
Yep. Oh,
move.
okay, then yep, I'll move then.
So I did, and I loved it. It's such a cool city, and I managed to move there in summer. So
It was at least
it
sort of
was
warm.
exactly, yeah. It was the nice time to arrive. Um, yeah, and they had us. There was 8 of us, and we started that studio in a little basement underneath what is now the proper studio. And yeah, we were super keen, super creative guys. Just basically, we got in there and we learned everything. They got us a guy from Foundry to come and teach us Mari. They got us, like we were all learning Arnold and Maya, and we were learning texturing and modeling and everything. And they basically just wanted us to try it all to see, because they knew we were all creative and they knew we all had different backgrounds. So I said, well, let's find out what your strengths are. And that's how we did it. I was doing on the first film, I Frankenstein, the great the great
Yeah.
I Frankenstein that of course everyone remembers. Uh,
For various reasons.
yeah. On certain sequences, I was animating the camera. I was doing all the lighting. I was placing the layout. I was doing the compositing, and it was great. It was hectic. We were working a lot.
Yep.
We in our first year we earned up about 3 months of overtime.
Whoa. Yep. Like,
So
yeah, putting in the hours for the work, but
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that was fun. I loved it at Luma. It was a great bunch of people. We grew up to about 100 people at some point. And then and we were working with LA. I ended up going out to LA to work there for a little while, which was super cool. And then after a while, I was lighter and compositor. I was lead lighter there, so for a long time. And then after a few years, I talked to the boss and I became the director of photography. So basically, that would be we were working on Doctor Strange at the time, and we did this Ant-Man versus Hulk commercial. I don't know if you remember the Super Bowl.
The
It was
Super
like
Bowl
it was a
commercial.
Coke, yeah, Coke commercial, yeah.
Ah, yes, I
So that
remember
was
that one.
so we did that, and that was how my role evolved. I was moved with the animators, which was obviously the fun part of the building, and you know because you get to go home on time. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would do the big shots, and then I would work with the animators on the other cameras, and we'd do the previs and the layout, and then I would take that to work with the lighting supervisor, and we'd just develop an image that way. So basically, I was doing pictures and concept shots and things like that for big films that we were going to work on in full CG, and that became my role, which was sort of my full circle. I
Yep.
became the DOP again.
Yep. Yep. Just now in a fully digital environment.
Exactly, yeah. And that was how I sold it. I said, look, I don't know why we split this up. I don't know why. And even Pixar do it. They have a director of photography for camera and they director of photography for lighting. And yeah, it is a big job.
Yeah.
If you're doing a whole film, it's a big job. But I think that aesthetic is so important to be able to collaborate the camera and the lighting together.
Yeah.
That's what filmmaking is. It's like you need to know what you're looking at and where the light's coming from, because that's where the emotion is.
Yep.
Obviously, the performance is the most important thing, but you need to be able to capture that in a uniform way. You need to work together with the
Yeah.
lighter and
Yeah,
the
because that's the
camera.
thing. If you've got a fabulous animation, you do need to show it off and kind of match it with both the camera and the lighting as well to tell a synergistic story. They all work
Absolutely,
together.
yeah.
So does that get you now? That gets you down to Melbourne. You have a fun time in Melbourne, a great experience in Melbourne. So does that then? How do you then end up in the UK?
So yeah, after about a year of that, I mean, it wasn't all fun and games, as it always isn't. Um, I, I sort of, I was getting a little bit um, big in my head for Luma, and I say that with all kind of obnoxiousness. I just thought I, I don't like. I was one of the senior people at Luma at the time, and I thought I want to be challenged. I don't want to be in a studio where I'm the most experienced person. And
Yeah, yeah,
I
because
wasn't, but I mean, I was close. Yeah,
but like you said, you started off with Luma when it was just like a little, little group of you just down the bottom, and yeah, you'd been there right from the start. So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. So I thought, well, I want to go work at the studio. So I thought, I haven't got many years in this industry. Maybe
yeah,
I want to go to the big boys and work on the big sequences, because we'd be working on Luma and we'd like on Doctor Strange we did some massive sequences. But you'd always look at ILM's work or some of DNEG's work, and you'd be like, oh, okay, they've got a spaceship crashing into a building that blows up a planet, and that sort of stuff. And
yeah,
I thought, why not? I want to go there.
yeah,
So yeah, I wrote to my friend who was at DNEG in London, and then it was called Double Negative. But yeah, like they called me. I think like this was just before Christmas. They called me and they said, "Yeah, we want to have an interview." Had an interview, and then the next day they offered me a job So it was all super sudden, and I just happened, because it was a Christmas time. I happened to be at home with my mum in Brisbane, and my sister who lives in Dublin was there as well. And I said I just got offered a job in London. I don't know if I want to move over there. And my sister was like, "Yeah, come over." Like
Yeah, it'll be
she'd
closer.
have
You'll
someone
just be
close.
down the road. I'll be able to catch up.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Hasn't worked out so well this year, but yeah,
Yeah.
like so that was it. And surprisingly, my mum was like, "Yeah, go for it." So
Yeah.
I just jumped on a plane again and ended up in London.
Oh. Wow. So yeah, but like you were saying, it was an ambition that got you there to go. You want to be working on you want to be challenged. You want to be working on bigger projects with with other people that are going to push you to learn more and actually get better at your craft. So how have you gone now? Because that was how many years ago was it that you first went across?
It's almost 4 years now. Yeah.
Yeah. So how's the
So
journey
yeah.
gone? Rubbing shoulders with people who are actually making you work. I guess to the best of your ability and giving you that support to grow.
Well, ironically, it wasn't what I imagined, but I think like since then it definitely has been. I think when I first arrived, they have this thing here where if you started a company, you don't get to see the good toys. Like you
Mm.
don't get to work with the cool people, and you don't get to. So they don't tell you that when you start. But basically, they put me on Wonder Woman as soon as I started, and Wonder Woman was mostly a crew of kind of hacked together people that had come from somewhere else. So the people that had been at DNEG a long time, and the people who had all the experience, they were on another show. They were doing the what's the Ex Machina.
Oh,
You remember the Natalie Portman film from the director of Ex Machina that was on Netflix?
yeah, I'm trying to think of the name of it. I
Yeah.
do. Yeah, yeah.
So they were on that, and they were on Dunkirk. Like they were
Oh,
doing the prestige stuff, and we were on Wonder Woman. So I was just working with people who were less experienced than me, and
ah,
I was like, oh, but I already got this at
yeah,
home.
yeah,
But after that, they put me on this film called Category 5, which was I was doing layout generalist stuff again. So they hired me, because I was DOP. They were like, oh, we want to put you through layout, and we want to put you through lighting as well. So I was sort of hurdling the two. And they gave me this massive shot on this terrible film about a hurricane heist. It was called in the end, and basically, like a massive oil tanker crashes on the shore, and all these waves shoot over, and it's this long, long shot of running over the whole scene. And I was on that, for a month, and it looked really cool, at the end. And they put me on Pacific Rim, did
oh,
the
yep,
same sort of thing. I was doing layout camera work on that. That
yep,
was super fun for a while, because they shot that in Brisbane. So
yep.
I was like, I was sitting in London, doing shots of Brisbane with crazy monsters attacking and all this sort
You,
of stuff.
you're getting nostalgic, going, "Oh, I remember that street. I remember that building."
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's Spring Street. Here it goes. You know.
Yep.
Um, but that was fun. But it didn't really kick into gear until Justice League. So I was taken off Pacific Rim because I was not really having much fun, and I was put on Justice League, and DNEG, ironically, were doing both Mission Impossible for 6, I think, and uh, Justice League at the same time. And Henry Cavill was on both, and this news came in that he wasn't allowed to shave his beard off, right? And
Yeah.
it's this now it's a famous VFX story. And the instant I started the show, they're like, "Oh, well, we want your experienced lighter. We want you to do the beard shots." And I was like, "Okay, great. Let's have a go." And it's sort of now it's notorious, and it's hard for me to talk about because everyone knows how bad it looked in the film, but our shots never get talked about. And that's the thing, is like different studios did different shots,
Yep.
and no one really realizes how much
Oh,
his face was replaced. Like it was pretty much every shot.
I,
And I don't know if I'm breaking any rules for that, but it was a lot. And so every studio made a new Henry Cavill, so no one talked to each other. No
no,
one,
no
like,
one shared their
interact.
assets or about how they were going
Exactly,
about actually
exactly,
constructing it. Because yeah, it wasn't
exactly.
just one studio that handled that
No.
it was like you're saying, nearly every shot in the film needed to be
Yeah.
reconstructed. So
And it was super rushed. I mean, like the post-production on Justice League was over a year, well over a year, but this was maybe 8 weeks max.
wow.
And we like essentially like people think, oh, what did they do? Is up a lip. Like we did a full CG human face up close, and he's in a cornfield at sunset, and basically some of our work it looked incredible. Like we were up there on the we have in the theater at DNEG, we're right up on the big screen, and we're like, his lip here on that frame is not quite matching that little wobble. Like we were to that
You,
specific
yeah,
movement. And I learned so much about how the skin is affected by light, and how much our face moves beyond what we think we see. You know what I mean? Like there's so much that the human eye perceives on a face, because you see it all the time.
yep.
And when you're trying to recreate that, it's so difficult.
Yeah,
And
you've got to be so meticulous in it because anything that's not, which is why it became so notorious, is because there wasn't that equal range of detail over the whole film. But yeah,
exactly.
so
And you can never do that. I mean, like there's been other shows since, like Alita, or I guess The Irishman, things like that. That's different technology, and I sympathize with the guys in The Irishman, because I can imagine they went through the same discussions all the time.
yeah,
They, even though they say, oh, we set up this scanning equipment and all this sort of stuff, you still got to have a perfect rig. You still got to have animators come in and fix it all up. It's
yep,
it's it's a very, and everybody's making a good choice, and that's where it comes down to, is like you can have all the technology in the world, and the best stuff and the best whatever, but even the best artists, but you have to always make good decisions, and
yeah,
that's the problem. There's
yeah.
so many decisions to make
Yeah,
you know
and there's usually so many people, especially when you get on a larger scale, like a bigger production. There's more people who needs to make decisions on it. It's never just one person
exactly.
going, "I just need that." There'll be about five other people going, "Okay, well we can, this is can all come in and go, okay, we'll contribute a little bit. We can." And yeah, you get the poor artist on the floor going, "It doesn't look good." And
Yeah,
make it better,
absolutely.
make it better. uh,
Yep, that's a direction we get a lot.
So, Lucas, there was one last thing which you've got coming on the horizon. You're actually doing some training courses as well.
Yeah, it's just a one-off tutorial that should be available soon. But yeah, you can probably check out my art station, and I'll put up links and things to that.
Excellent. Well, with that, that's some brilliant stories that you've been able to share, especially from your journey all the way from humble Brisbane all the way across to working on, now you say, feature films and fully animated feature films now. So congratulations on moving through a career, and thank you for sharing it with everybody.
Yeah, cheers.
Um,
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have links in the description to this video down below to that. But until next year, when we'll start off all these conversations again, I'll say bye bye.